Chief Swan, if you want to introduce both you and your assistant, we will turn the mic over to you.
All right, thank you. I'm Director Chief Will Swan of the Nashville Fire Department and Office of Emergency Management. And to my right, your left, is Leanne Bircher. She's over finance with the Nashville Fire Department. Definitely, and thank you, Chair, and for all the council members for your continued support, not just now, but just throughout the year. It's always a pleasure and an honor, definitely, to come before you guys to talk a little bit about my department and your department. It's always an honor for me to sit in this position because we come from such a, I guess, a tradition of what a fire department does in a city. I often say that this city is no safer or no better than public safety, and the Nashville Fire Department, it makes a big part of that. I often say that we're not a fire department, but we're really an all-hazards department because we deal with everything. Not just your shootings, stabbings, homicides, suicides, your drownings, your overdose, your suspicious packages, your psych calls, your the way the society is going today. You see trends that happen in other cities. It just follows, and it comes right here to Nashville. Nashville is considered in the top 5 as far as a place to go have a good time and a safe time. And I would love to think that's because of the men and women that work for the Nashville Fire Department in the Office of Emergency Management. So hats off to them. They do an outstanding job. Some of the things I just want to touch real fast, just so that you'll understand when I say we're all hazardous department, some things that you may not even be aware of that this department does. We have what we call our Tennessee Heart Team. It's helicopter air Quantics rescue team, and what that is, they do air rescue. We partner with the Air Guard, the Tennessee Highway Patrol. We've been doing this now for about 3 years. We have our urban search and rescue. As you guys know, when disasters happen, not just here locally, but anywhere in the States, United States, our team has risen their level up where we're usually one of the first ones that they call. Our swift water rescue team is made up of fire and OEM, do an excellent job when it comes to when we deal with floodings. And we offer our support not just to Davidson County, which is our primary, but also our border counties and anywhere in Tennessee. Special operations with special events. This has grown tremendously. As you know, there's not a weekend that hardly goes by where it's not some type of event that's happening in Nashville. Our teams play an important part of that. Our Blaze program, that's our mentoring program, is breaking limitations and accepting zero excuses. And we're partnered with the local schools. And I know we were hampered a little bit due to the COVID restrictions, but now that's lifted. So we're back into schools and just trying to do a lot of mentoring, which do an outstanding job. Our fire marshal office, as you guys know, the city is not just growing up, but it's growing out. They do a tremendous job in the city that's growing as much as it is. Our canine search and rescue teams, I'm just going to mention them just because, again, this is the fire budget, but OEM's under fire department, and it's that sort of that one team. Our canine units are used all over and requested from everywhere. And then last but not least, we have our dive teams that's made up of fire and OEM. These guys do an outstanding job as well, and the request there is tremendous when we have events from Humphrey County or wherever it may be where their request is at. So again, a great department, and I just want to say to my department, you can take a bow. They've done an excellent job, and I hope that this city understands the not only the importance of the fire department, but just understand that the men and women, it's a calling every day. They come in, and for them, they put their life on the line. They don't consider themselves heroes. It's just what we were called to do, and they do it every day without grudge. So I thank them for that. So thank you, and I'm open to any questions that you guys may have.
I see a hand up. Councilmember Bradford.
Thank you, Chair. Looking through on page 32.3, fire at a glance. I noticed that you're requesting $100,000 for beautification of fire stations, as well as a line for salary and benefits for facilities maintenance. My question of the beautification, basically, how much are you looking at paying for maintenance, salary-wise, and could we not use that $100,000 to maybe add one or two more technicians? Because some of the staff I've spoken to have talked about for years, they've not had any maintenance, any maintenance requests have been refused, and so they've kind of pretty much taken on themselves to fix issues or even have neighbors call in hub requests to get stuff done in the area. So I'm basically asking, is it a proper use of the money for beautification when we have fire stations that are in need of maintenance and upkeep?
Yeah, well, before we get into, let me, and Leanne's going to answer that, but I will say this, as you guys know, we have fire stations that are definitely dated to, we have some that's, and I would be more than happy to share that with you guys, 50 years old and all the way up to the current date. So we do have our facility maintenance. We are trying to increase that number, and you notice even in our request, we actually got, we really hired about 4 personnel, but we asked for 1.5 because we, under our own budget, we hired 2. So we'll end up being about 2.5 to 3 people. But do we need more? Absolutely, we know that, but it is difficult. Those guys do an excellent job. The facility maintenance with what they have. Some of it is we actually will subcontract out, but it is difficult to try to keep up with requests from some of the older stations. But they do an excellent job at doing that, and it should not have any that does not get answered. But Leanne, if you don't mind getting a little bit more into the question that you asked about the funding.
Okay, the $100,000 that you refer to on the landscaping, that's non-recurring funding. So we'll get that money for 1 year, and that's just to put the landscaping in at each of the stations. The 1.5 FTEs that you're referring to, those will be permanent employees of the Nashville Fire Department who will assist the maintenance employees that we currently have to help take care of all of the stations we're responsible for. So they're really 2 separate functions.
Thank you for that clarification. I've got a couple more questions, but I'll let you go to the next person online.
And let me add, I want to appreciate you, and I know a couple other people who actually came out to some of the stations and spearhead and help with the beautification, and that did not go unnoticed. So again, we really appreciate that. And we planted some trees and took care of a few potholes and things of that nature. So again, we do appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Porterfield.
Thank you so very much, Chair, and thank you, Chief, for all of the amazing things that you all do to keep us safe. I've seen firsthand visiting the fire station in the district and speaking with the firefighters and EMS and just very hardworking team. So thank you for everything that y'all do. With the budgeted positions, the request for an increase in budgeted positions. I know we've been talking for years about not having enough personnel to go out on each, not meeting the industry standard of, I think it's 4 individuals per ride, and I think we've been running at about 3 per ride. Will this now bring us up to standard, or will we still be kind of behind the industry standard?
Well, and that's a great question, and thanks for asking that question. We asked for a total of 62 for our fire suppression, and what we got was 31. And so it's going to be a combination. We're going to hire 31 personnel, and with that 31, the decision that we knew that would be best is to, at Station 32s in Hermitage, as you guys know, that territory is so huge and large. It wears our equipment out and personnel out because of the distance and the run volume. We built Station 32s, and so the current vacant Station 32s, we're going to make that Station 40. So with what with the mayor's proposed budget, we're going to put a engine at Station 40s and a truck at Station 32s. What that will do, it will absorb what we asked for, the 30, what we received, the 31. But this will be tremendous with helping not only cut down on the wear and tear of the equipment, but it also keep us from having to move stations in order to cover. For instance, if we have a call in Hermitage, the closest truck is Donaldson, so you have to pull Station 28s to Hermitage, and now you have to pull 21s South Nashville to Donaldson. It's just like a chess match. So we will hire the 31. And then once we get the equipment in, because we were also granted a truck and an engine, it was so gracious for that to happen. So this is something that we need. So we will take what was given to us, and this won't happen until right around the maybe spring of next year. But that won't stop us from going ahead and hiring the 31. We'll do that. We'll have everything sort of put in place. Once the equipment gets there, personnel will be hired and trained, and we can go ahead and implement this program. So that will put us right back where your question, well, will that make us full staffing? We'll be about 31 personnel short of being fully staffed. I'm going to say this without being, hopefully it doesn't be so confusing, because I understand what is full staffing. Full staffing means on every apparatus, the engine, truck, or rescue, you have 5 personnel assigned to it. You have to have 5 assigned to it, because what happens is one will be off, whether it's vacation, sick, military leave, whatever it may be. So that means you have 4 personnel on the apparatus. That's the ideal number that you want, because remember, when you make a run to a call, it's not the distance, or it's not how quick they get there, and that matters, but the most important thing is, once you get there, what can you do? And that's when it goes back to the standard. If you've got 3 people, you don't have enough people to go in to actually, if it's a fire call or what have you, you have to have the engineer at the apparatus. Now, the captain will be given a report. You just don't have the proper people. So 4 is the magic number. So I know I went around the bend to answer that question, but in the short end, what we were granted, that's going to help us out to bring relief in the Hermitage area, but also we'll be back at that 31 being short from being full staffing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Nash.
I was a little bit confused about maintenance of your buildings. I've been retired a while, so things may have changed, but how does that work with general services? General services used to do the maintenance on our police department buildings, and is that different at the fire department?
Well, the newer buildings that's been built, yes, they're responsible for the maintenance on those. But we have...
NFD is responsible for approximately 28
yes,
out of 40 stations.
that we have to maintain that with. So that's quite a bit of a load. And again,
yes,
those numbers are high, 28, but then if you look at the age of those stations. So when you said the men and women at those fire stations sometimes take it up on themselves to do some of the painting and things of that nature, they're not required to do that. They do it because that's their house and it's pride. And so are they required to do it? No. But again, the expectation there is, like anything else, is for us to just be excellent. And so I think we shouldn't have to do it, but they do it, and I think it's good that they do that. So we're working on it. Thank you.
Thank you. I had a question about the paid family leave that's mentioned in here. Is that number for all employees, or is that just cover the new full-time employees that you're adding?
That amount covers the increased usage. Each year, the amount of usage of paid family leave continues to rise, and this is what we anticipate the need will be for next year.
Great, thank you. And related to that, now if you were to have 5 people per apparatus and someone was on paid family leave, then you don't have to hire a contract person to fill in that gap. So I know a couple of years ago, there was an expense y'all were having to incur just to cover people to fill in when someone was off on paid family leave, and that was causing an additional expense. So again, that's another reason we need to work towards getting you towards that 5 people. Is that still an issue?
It is, and it is a big issue. Again, paid family leave, as we all know, is it's good. It's good for all of us. Everybody, including myself, can take advantage of that. And when I mean take advantage of it, that's what it's for. But for me in my position, it makes it difficult because unlike some of the other departments, you have to have that minimum number on that apparatus or you cannot run it. You have to have a minimum of 3. And again, even at 3, it's not good. So if Will Swan is off and now we only got 2, then we have to call in overtime to fill that gap. So then you filling in, you're paying the person that's off, of course, pay family leave, and then you paying the person that comes to ride overtime. So yes, that is a problem, but I am very thankful that when you were talking about a couple of years ago, we didn't have it in our budget to cover that. So we're so gracious that the current administration seen that problem, and that's not a budget issue that we can manage from a department standpoint. It means it's nothing we can do about that. So they were very gracious to give us look at our track record, how it's been done, and they were able to plug that in. So we're very thankful for that.
Great, okay. And then final question from me, there's funding in there for a crisis counselor. Is that for your firefighters, just for trauma processing?
It is.
I'm glad to know we have that.
The request was but we were funded for the Partners in Care program, which services people in the community experiencing mental health challenges. And so one of our employees, along with a mental health professional, would respond to that situation in lieu of tying up an ambulance on something where we could get the individual to the services they need.
Got it, okay. That's helpful. Other questions from the council members present? Oh, Councilmember Bradford, you did have more questions.
Thank you, Chair. So like I said, I had a couple more follow-ups, and one of them kind of follows what Councilmember Porterfield was bringing up with the standards. She mentioned the standards when it comes to personnel. My question is the standards when it comes to the equipment, trucks and whatnot. What is the current status of our overall fleet health? Good, bad, satisfactory? How many trucks have we been able to order or purchase due to federal funding or budget, CIB 4%? And are there plans? And the other part is the fire department adhering to the, I believe it's called the 60% rule? When a truck hits a certain mileage, it's moved to a reserve status. Is that being followed as well?
Okay. So let me start off with saying that our fleet, I think our fleet issue is a problem that not only the fire department is having, but is probably nationwide. And a lot of the fleet problems that we're having with ordering parts and stuff is due to, of course, a supply and demand issue that we're dealing with. We've always had a problem trying to get enough reserve units in. As you mentioned, trucks is one of our biggest issue. But I do want to take a moment, though, because I want to talk a little bit about general service and as far as Stacy and Velvet. We've worked hand in hand with them, and actually we've met on several occasions, and as of late, I think we met yesterday, okay. Time flies with me, but just to try to be creative with some of the things that we do. They were very open to some of our ideals to help us better facilitate this fleet problem. Some of it's out of their control with not having personnel because they can't hire, and the other one is parts that cannot get in just because of the shortage that we have. But we were granted 28.5 million, and a request that I can give you just a quick overview of what we have on order as far as our apparatuses. We have 25 med units, 15 engines, 8 aero trucks. These are on order, and med units estimate between June and July. We should have in 6 engines and 4 trucks arrive over the course of the next 3 to 4 months. 7 remaining 4 engines, trucks, and 8 medium-duty response units are going to be somewhere between that 12 months, just because of having to make them. So the order is there, and the issue that we have is real. I just cannot say enough about how the relationship with General Services, but more so internally, what takes place when we have to try to play chess match with making sure that we have the proper equipment, proper apparatus. Because again, my biggest fear is that the personnel come to work and they go home, and then making sure that they have the tools that they need in order to provide the service that you expect, the mayor expect, and of course, the expectation is high there. So this is not a new issue or problem. I think it's happening everywhere, but we're trying to manage that the best that we can.
And the follow-up, you mentioned that y'all have spoken about some creative solutions. Are you able to elaborate on that? Are we looking at possibly working with vendors to either rent vehicles, lease them out, or is there certain companies that if we pay a down payment, we get a certain percentage off the overall contract in order to save money? Like, what are those kind of conversations that you've had?
Well,
On the heavy apparatus, we're not looking at leasing vehicles, but on the light fleet, like sedans and unmarked vehicles, we are looking at a leasing program in our fire marshal's office. It'll be similar to what the codes department is doing today with their inspectors as well. But for any of our employees who have to run emergency, leasing a vehicle is not as easy of an option because of all the equipment and safety mechanisms we would have to put on that vehicle.
and that's a very expensive avenue to go. And we looked at that, and not only that, but be honest with you, there's just nothing out there. We were granted our light fleet, for instance. We have actually 60.
There's 60 light vehicles out
Yeah,
there.
62, 63 light vehicles that we were you guys voted upon, and thanks for the ARP that they granted us to have this because our fleet and such a light fleet is so old. Well, we got granted the approval, but we won't even see those until 23, in the fall of 23. And that's because of chip and all these other issues. They're doing a search trying to find, are there vehicles on lots like SUVs, or because that's one of the biggest things that we'll use, and these other utility trucks. There's just nothing out there. So that's one of the issues.
And my last question, I promise. You mentioned that after this budget, you're looking at only being down 31 employees to meet that 5-person standard. Is there a hope that we can see that those 31 positions may be filled next year, and maybe next year we're looking at a fully staffed fire department so that we can maybe start looking at expanding stations, especially in areas like Southeast Nashville where it's grown, but the stations cover a wide map.
Look, we always have hope, and I'm the one thing that I'm very comfortable with saying openly that the administration do understand that. Yes, I've got great hope that getting us to a level where we need to be with fully staffing. But you're right, we're already ID'd at least 4 new stations. That means brand new stations, as you mentioned, that needs to be built. And we're looking at the four corners. I mean, that's just to make it easy. I won't mention where, because if I do that, then I know I'll get beat up, because everybody wants a fire station. And if I had it my way, we'd all have one. But unfortunately, we understand that takes a lot of funding, but we are needing, because I said it earlier in my opening, we're not just growing up, we're growing out. And that is a big issue. We know that. We see it with our heat maps. We see it. We're used to use Nashville Next that would talk about where the growth is potentially would be, but we see it every day. We can pull our numbers. We see the run volumes. We know about the time it takes to get there. So we know that there's an issue and a problem, and we've got that. We've got everything worked out as far as where we would like to go. And we've been working with a lot of citizens and our, your constituents and my bosses. I get a ton of emails every day, and we can concur that with what we're seeing. But yes, that is the plan. Thank you for asking.
Thank you, Chair.
Good to think ahead of time. Councilmember Syracuse.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chief. Appreciate everybody being here. Just curious, under other expenses, it went up 78%, $2 million. Can you dive into that a little bit?
Are you referring to the actuals for last year?
General services, general fund. Other expenses went from about 2.5 million to 4.5 million.
In last year or in the,
I'm
which page are you looking
pretty
at?
sure I'm looking at this year.
Are you, so,
It's recommended budget,
F32.5, what page are you on?
Yeah.
which page are you?
32.5.
32.5, okay,
Yes, to
sorry.
general fund.
I just want to make sure I answered the right question. The jump from 2.5 to 4.5, the vast majority of that is the increase that we have received for safety and medical supplies. That's the single item that's the largest jump in that. And then there's other miscellaneous items associated with hiring staff. There are things that we have to acquire, whether it be paying for software licenses, their professional licenses, the gear that's required to do their job every day. But that safety and medical supply is the largest component of that. Because as I'm sure you're aware, the cost of buying drugs and everything has increased exponentially.
Sure. Thank you. You feel like that is a consistent figure that we'll be looking at next year? That 78% increase from last year, will that now be a consistent figure?
I don't want to go out there and say it's going to be a 78% increase, but I do feel like it will be a significant increase, because as the department's call volume and transport volume continue to rise along with the cost of the materials, it's going to go up.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and we're seeing about a 15% increase, with our call volumes, and when you think about the fire department, I want to make sure too that also includes our EMS. I mean, I don't separate them. I know people do that, but fire and EMS, it's all the same thing. One big family. I mean, these guys. We're so thankful to actually have the increase in numbers there, where we'll increase our med units from 28 to, we'll have 3 more med units. We asked for 5, but we got those 3, and we're very thankful because, again, everyone's taking a beating when it comes to these call volumes, but again, they do it with a lot of grace and which is expected. But when you look at our department compared to our neighboring cities like Charlotte and Indianapolis and Memphis, you'll see the vast difference. We're number 1 in overall coverage, square coverage. We cover 526 100 square miles, but Memphis is 324, Charlotte is 300, and Indianapolis is 275. But yet, when you look at they have 59. Memphis have 59 fire stations. Indianapolis have 43. Charlotte has 41. We have 39. So you see the difference, but we will, with what we've got, we'll make 40, so that's getting us up there. Ladder trucks, you know, again, that's another thing that's very, very precious and important because they're very expensive pieces of equipment. So we try to be very mindful of how we run those vehicles, but example there, Memphis has 26, Indianapolis has 22, Charlotte 15, we have 12. See, so again, there's other things that when we look at the overall population of firefighters, Memphis have 1,700. Indianapolis has 1,200. Charlotte, a little over 1,000. We just have 850. So you see that there's a difference. I mean, we're doing a lot, and our run volumes are more. So you see what we're doing. I mean, and that's just hats off to the men and women of this great department. So I just want to thank again the current administration, and then also thanking for the metrics that was done with Diego and Bruce and all those to help tell this story and show this. Because again, when you think about the fire department, we know how devastating fires are. They're devastating, property and people. But again, it's an all hazardous department. We deal with everything. So thank you guys.
Absolutely, no,
Appreciate
totally
that.
with you. Just as a little follow-up, from an accounting perspective, a other expenses category just seems like a catch-all. For sure, I get it, but when it rises towards the 4.5 million mark, I'm just wondering if they should be put into other categories that are allow for a little more transparency. Just a suggestion maybe for next year, if that number is going to be kind of consistent at about a $4.5 million level of other expenses. Just a thought. Thank you.
Okay, it's easily done. And we can break those down for you guys if you want that individually.
If you could do that and send it to Margaret Darby, she can get that on the SharePoint, and that way everyone can see that. That'd be great.
Okay.
And I will just say early in this term, or it might have been at the end of the last term, you offered the opportunity for council members to come out to the training facility and have a day of seeing what your firefighters do, and it was an amazing experience. So for anybody who hasn't had that opportunity, it just gives you a greater appreciation for the hard work that they do, and I hope we get that chance again sometime before the end of this term, because it was a real education for me. So with that, I will let y'all off the hot seat, and think that the Sheriff's Department all got here early. If y'all want to start now, I don't think that would be a problem, and we'll welcome y'all on up. Thank you so much, Chief Swan.